Okay, here's the next evolution in how we will work with LayerComps. So this is familiar to you, which is the lines tool, or the lines that I've created from last week's project. We'll talk about how you can apply things like scale, color, layer styles, position, and rotation, and more, but this is just a good starting point. That's why we can break that down into, call it scalper. I'll turn this layer back off. Okay, so just to recap, the three things that LayerComp can track is visibility, position, and appearance. So let's create some comps based on those things. I'll rapidly do this, so we'll cancel this out. Obviously, your position, so I'll just move a few things around here. Again, doesn't have to be complex for this one. We're just moving position. Move this down here. And obviously, you also don't have to like move these in order like this, but I don't know, just sort of violates my sense of right and wrong not to do that right now. Anyway, so there's my positional change. So I will create a layer comp based on this and call it position. We've done that already. Now let's try some visibility. Now for the most part, the comps that you'll create should have 5 lines on them. But just to demonstrate how this works, I'm going to turn a couple of these layers off, layer 2 and shape layer 4, and create a new comp out of this. So again, I click in the null space and create a new object here. We'll call this visibility and click OK. And now when I click back and forth on these guys, OK, and then back to my starting point. And then the last thing this stuff tracks is, I'll use this one. Actually, I'll use this one. It also tracks your appearance, so layer styles. So let's say that on shape layer 5, I go to the effects down here and go to pattern overlay. And it asks me, well, which pattern do you want? Well, I'm just going to use the one that just shows up here, which is this kind of weird texture with little balls on there. So I'll click OK. And now I've got 3 things, so I'll create a layer comp out of this. Make sure it works. We'll call this one pattern. Click OK. And now when we click back and forth, we get different shapes here. And these are just strictly the things that we've changed. Okay, so there's position, there's the visibility with 2 of these layers off, and then there's a pattern change going on that one. So let's talk about the things that you can also do. So we talked about scaling. So in this case, I'm going to use the scale and rotate to make a separate new thing. In fact, I'm just going to pick on this last shape 5 as an example. So normally we would hit Command T, but just to refresh you on this, it is free transform, which does both scaling and rotation. And once we apply that here, just put a little rotation on here. We might even apply some scaling, a little bit bigger, and click OK. Now, here's the problem. Okay. In fact, I'll create a comp just so you can see this. We'll call this scale rotate. Okay. But when we do this, and I go back across these guys, it takes that last layer and does the scaling and rotation, and it messes up our original comps. So that's not good because, as we've mentioned before, when you go to layer comp, LayerComps does not track rotation or scaling. So it essentially thinks that you want to apply that permanently to your layers. So this is not cool. So we're going to go back a few steps. Let me turn this off for a minute. Okay, I'm going to undo, so Command Option Z. I'm going to undo a few things until this stuff goes away. There we go. Now I'm back to my original position. So since we can't track scaling and rotation, for example, excuse me, what we have to do is to create a duplicate. So I'm going to take this shape layer 5 that's over here, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I could use the keyboard shortcut, but I'm going to show you where this is again. It's in the layer menu, new, and I'm going to do layer via copy. So I'll copy that layer. And as you can see now that there's shape 5, and up here it says shape 5, it says copy over there. Okay, I will leave this one on, and I will turn this one off so that the changes I make to the layer 5 copy or shape 5 copy won't affect the original shape 5. So now we'll go to, make sure that one is selected, and I'll just hit Command T and scale it. and rotate it. Okay, I'll make a new, Photoshop wants me to finish what I'm doing. Okay, now I'll go back over here, click in the null space, and create a new thing here. Now this one is tracking, I mean really it's tracking visibility because we turned off the original layer and turned on a new layer. Okay, so we'll call this one scale, rotate, and click OK. So now this one should be a separate entity. When I go back to click on these guys here, it should go back. By the way, the little outline here just means that this layer is selected over here. So I'll just click down here in the null space to make those lines go away. Now I can just move along amongst here just fine, and no other layers have been affected. So that's strictly due really to the visibility issue. So let's quickly recap some of the other things you can do. So we did color, I'm sorry, we did scale, we did rotation, we've applied layer styles, and we did position, which are the things we can track. Color, let's change color. Again, we can't track color, so we're going to have to make a duplicate. So let's take, how about layer 1 this time, and we'll duplicate this one. So this time I will hit Command J. So I have a duplicate. I must turn off the original layer, which is shape 1. Okay, so now I can apply something else here. Now, in this case, since shape layers, now, as we've said before, or I've said before, I hope that you got this, was that we're working with a slightly different beast. Up to now, I've shown you in class a lot of stuff dealing with pixels, just painting with a paintbrush. That's all pixels. This is a thing called a vector layer. It's called a shape layer. And what happens is we're allowed to change color. So I'll double click on this color chip and go apply some sort of color. I'll just grab this one that's red just because it's handy and click OK. And that is my shape copy. Again, I'll make a new comp out of this. We'll call this color copy, or just color. Click OK. We have a new comp, and it has not messed up my other comps and my original section there. Okay, so it will mean that we're adding a lot more in terms of layers, but we're all working within one file, which is really where I'm heading you guys. So that when you make changes to your layouts, when you create art, it's not just one piece of artwork. You should be creating different versions of it, because different versions might appeal to different people, like your boss or your client or your art director. So you need to give up some sort of options, some sort of different looks. And when you start to get more layers here, it's going to start to get messy. So what can happen is, why don't we do this? Let's organize our layers a little bit. Down at the bottom, there's a group folder here. It says create a new group, and it looks like a folder, which makes sense. So I'll create a new one there. And it shows up at the top. It shows up on top of whatever I had selected, which was this shape 1 copy before. So what I can do is I can put in here, maybe I'll rename this as, in this case, maybe changes. And I can put one layer in here. Look what happens when I do this. First of all, I can drag this layer. Oops, sorry, it thinks I want to change the name. I can drag this over here onto that, and notice what happens. It goes into this folder, and it's indented a little bit from the other layers. Now if I click this little red triangle here, that closes that up. So ultimately I could put many more layers in here. I could drag this one in here, drag this one in. Oops, let me grab it over here. That's a little easier. Thanks, I want to change color. There we go. Now you're going to be creating 15 comps, so you probably want to base this a little more logically. In fact, let me do another movie where I demonstrate how to do this, and then this might make a little bit more sense as well. I've got 2 more movies to show you.